Hey listeners, it's Kara, your host. After 176 amazing episodes and hundreds of book recommendations, I wanted to make it a little bit easier for you to find your next great read. The Bookish Lights Roadmap is your guide to all 175 podcast episodes, sorted by genre so you can quickly find the stories that fit your reading mood. From picture books to adult novels and everything in between, it's the perfect way to explore past episodes and discover new favorites. You can find your copy of the Bookish Lights Roadmap at www.bookishlights.com/read/roadmap, or just click the link in the show notes. Hi, I'm Kara Infante, and this is Bookish Flights, a podcast where we tell our stories through our favorite books. Each episode features a bookish guest where we will talk about reading, life, and the seasons we're in, all through a thoughtfully paired book flight of recommendations for you. If you're looking for meaningful book recommendations and a space to slow down, you're in the right place. In today's episode, I am chatting with Wade Rouse. Wade is the USA Today, Publishers Weekly, and internationally best-selling author of over 13 books. Wade's books have been translated into 21 languages and have been bestsellers across the world. He chose his grandmother's name, Viola Shipman, as a pen name to honor the working poor Ozarks woman whose heirlooms and family stories inspire his fiction. Wade divides his time between Saugatuck, Michigan, and Palm Springs, California, and is also an acclaimed writing teacher who has mentored numerous students to become published authors. We are here today to discuss his latest novel, That's What Friends Are For. Welcome to the show, Wade.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, I am honored to have you. As I mentioned when we were doing our little behind the scenes, I've read so many of Viola Shipman novels. So I'm like, I saw your name come through and I was like, I have to have him on the show.
Thank you. I'm excited. Yeah, I'm kind of switching gears a little bit. The first novel under my own name, but Viola's going to be here forever. So I'm going to be doing both.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to dig in a little bit how you're going to do that. But I feel like we're so much more than our bios. So let's kick it off with a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I always say it's like books with an elevator pitch that always goes much deeper than that.
Yeah.
I grew up in the Missouri Ozarks in the 60s and 70s. I always ask readers if they've seen the TV show Ozark, and I always say they sugarcoated it. It was actually a little bit rougher for a kid like me that loved to read and write, and I played the trombone and all the things kind of Ozarks boys did not do.
Yeah.
And I had an incredible mother and even more wonderful grandmothers, including my grandma Shipman, who never finished high school. She never learned to drive. She stitched overalls at a factory her entire life and saved pennies and change so that my mother would go to college, be the first in our family to kind of break that cycle. And she was the kindest, smartest, wisest woman I've ever known in my life. And she was my best friend growing up.
Yeah.
And she taught me everything there was about the world, that I should, no matter how it treated me, I should love my uniqueness. I should cherish it. And that reading books and education would save my life. So she really understood what mattered most in life, which so many of us either take for granted or don't get anymore these days. We're typically too focused on all the bad stuff or, finger pointing at one another. My grandmother was not like that. So when I started writing, started my career writing nonfiction. I wrote 4 memoirs before I ever wrote my first Viola novel. And I chose her name because it's the smallest thank you I could give to her. Nobody ever said her name growing up. And I always say, 100 years when I'm no longer around, people will walk into the library and pick up a book and say her name. And that's the greatest gift to me.
Yeah. Wow. I have the chills and like a little teardrop like in the back of my eye that's such an incredible nod to your grandmother. And she sounds like the strongest woman one of the strongest women I have heard of, because I can't imagine.
She really was amazing, and I think today the world is hard and it's always going to be hard, but we tend to complain about things without thinking sometimes about what our elders went through. grandfathers being in war, illness, health, poverty, disease. And, they did not have easy lives, but my grandmother was also a woman of great faith, and she never complained either any day. I mean, every
Yeah.
day was always a gift to her. So I always try to embrace that when things get too tough. I was like, okay, how bad is it really? And my grandpa Shipman, he was an ore miner, and then he raked rocks off of farmers' fields just to make money to feed the family.
Wow.
So when I have a bad day, it's not even close to their bad day.
Yeah, and I think when you have that dichotomy, right, of such a harsh life, it it's the simple things in life that mean the most to you. And I think when you don't see that when life is easy, I don't think as easily.
You do not, and I think we tend to take it for granted. And my grandmother used to. It's one thing. It's one of the reasons I started writing the novels under her name were exactly what you said. The simplest things in life matter the most, and those are the
Yeah.
things that we take for granted: our health, having a roof over our heads, having a family that is happy and healthy and joyous. Um, that's it.
Yeah.
The rest of it really, just kind of is powder that can float away. But those are really the things that matter. And so that's what I hope my Viola Shipman novels, that's why I write them, is to
Yeah.
remind readers of that and that there is hope and we are all important and needed. And our lives matter because they impact everyone else around us.
Yeah. Listeners, if you haven't picked one up, I would highly encourage it. It's just a wonderful escape. It feels like a warm hug whenever I step into one of
Thank
those
you.
books. So, well, we are discussing your latest novel under your own name today. So it's That's What Friends Are For, and it released this week. For listeners that maybe haven't had a chance to pick it up yet, why don't you tell them a little bit about it?
Well, they should just run out and get it immediately. And
Absolutely.
what's lovely is as we were chatting, yeah, you're in San Diego and I'm in Palm Springs, and that's where the novel takes place.
Yeah.
It's I grew up being a huge fan of the Golden Girls, and it was one of the things that sort of bonded me with my mother and my grandmother. And that's what Friends and Four is greatly inspired by the Golden Girls. It follows four men of a certain age, as they like to say, gay who live in Palm Springs, who have decided to live communally together in Zsa Zsa Gabor's former mid-century mansion, which is very real here in Palm Springs
Okay, I was wondering.
and very pink, just
Okay.
like it's like the Golden Girls home. And each of the men has one of the characteristics of the real Golden Girls. And they perform a show every month that kind of brings the sitcom to life for younger and new audiences. And their lives are kind of golden in their golden years, but each is kind of holding on to a secret of their own, either from their past or their present. And it kind of all comes to a head when Teddy, who is really the caustic Dorothy character in the novel, his estranged sister shows up on his doorstep with her granddaughter in tow, and everything kind of comes very unstitched very quickly.
Yeah.
But this is really a book about, found family and friendship and community and aging in America. And truly, I think loving ourselves for who we are, um, and and finding those friends in this world that complete us. That's a very rare thing. But
Yeah.
those who challenge us, see us for who we are, love us for all our faults and foibles, but really make our life whole.
Yeah. I've had another author, Amanda Cox, come on and she said, she talks about themes of books that are her catnip, and found family is my catnip. I've been using it ever since she said it, and it just, I'm maybe because I'm an only child, I don't know, but for
Wow.
me, found family is just, it's it because friends are my family. Really.
It's it is. I think for so many of us, friends are they see us through so much in
Yeah.
life, the good and the bad, and they're the glue that remains with us. So many of my dear friends are ones that I still had from, rural grade school all the way through college. And we touch base and we support each other, even though we might live thousands of miles apart. Um, it's it's what really makes us who we are. Yeah, found
Yeah.
family is, and I loved writing this book. The friends, just how very different we can be, but how we can support each other when we really need it the most.
Yeah. And as you're saying about like how we complete one another, I could feel that in this book now that you're saying that. I don't think I would have been able to wrap my head and say it that way, but I felt that when I was reading this book, how they complete one another.
And they're not always the kindest to each other. They're it's this book is, I think, ferociously funny, but
Yeah.
they cut each other down, they call each other out, which is what I kind of do with my friends too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love this. I loved this book as well because for me, I love walking in someone else's shoes in a life that I have not lived. And I think reading and fiction, especially, or even nonfiction, right? Memoirs, you can absolutely do that. You get to spend 300 pages or 10 hours in an audiobook in someone else's life that just creates empathy and understanding. And I think there's so much beauty that can come from that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. Growing up, I was raised by incredibly strong, wise women. My great aunts, my grandmothers, my mother, and growing up, all of my best friends were largely women,
Yeah.
who, you know, shared things with me that they haven't shared with, I don't think, their children or their spouses. And I grew up going to the beauty parlor with my grandma, and I heard the way the women talked without the men folk around and all the dreams and secrets they shared. And I felt like I was their vault in many ways. And writing the Viola novels, I stepped inside of all of those
Yeah.
people in my life, their lives. And then that's what friends are for. I feel like I stepped back into my own life again. All the challenges that I faced growing up.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Oftentimes feeling unwelcome and unloved and bullied, and yet persevering to find my community and my family. And it's tough, especially today, to feel often unsafe again.
Yeah.
And that's what I really wanted to convey in this book is, why we continue to fight, why we continue to battle. And it's simply to be loved and accepted. I don't care who you are. That's foundational for all of us. And yeah, I've been really, even just the early reviews and, you know, the authors that have read and endorsed the book, I've been very gratified that they've all kind of seen those common threads there.
Yeah. Yeah. It was hard, right? There was moments that I found myself, this is so sad, right? Of the experiences that they went through, especially when they were younger, or like you said, bully or ostracized or pushed out by their families, but then the redemption of the friendship piece, right? And I mean, there was sad, but hopeful. And like you said, hilariously funny. So you're going to feel all the emotions when you read this.
It's a little bit, I tried to actually write out like the sitcom, which is what I've done my whole life is, even being, the kid like I was in the Ozarks, if I could make somebody laugh,
Yeah.
they weren't going to pick on me. They were going to be my friend. I could bring them in. Or if I was worried, a joke can keep people at a safe distance as well, so they don't get too close,
Yeah.
especially if you're given a zinger or two to someone. And just humor, I love that in this book because, um, preaching at people, pointing fingers at people, or trying to teach them a lesson doesn't really work if you're being angry or too
Yeah.
loud. But if you get people to laugh, then they're in a different state of mind. They're elevated, and I think they're more willing to understand who you are and what your life has been like.
Yeah, I think a lot of us shut down in anger, right? When someone approaches us in like that aggressive way, we just tend to shut down. And there's no way your point's getting across, right? Or understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah. Who was your favorite character to write in this?
Oh my gosh, it changed. I actually thought that from the beginning it would be Teddy, who's like Dorothy.
Yeah.
And I really loved Ron, who's the Rose character, who's kind of the caretaker for the group.
Yeah, I
He's the
loved
one
him
that's,
too.
it's almost like, he's the mom of the group, and he's getting very tired of making sure that the boys are all, falling in line and playing by the rules. But I have to say, I became fascinated with Sid, who's an 81-year-old Jewish man, previously married with family,
Okay.
grandchildren, great grandchildren,
Yeah.
who has never, ever truly been in love in his life. And through the course of the book, he kind of stumbles into that in a, I think, a beautiful storyline
Yeah.
of no matter how old you are, the incredible joy of just actually being seen
Yeah.
for the first time in your life. I actually wept a few times writing his story, and then I loved Barry, who's the Blanche character, who kind of devours, casts young men aside, but it's because he's been hurt,
Yeah.
and he's actually inspired by a real character in the Golden Girls named Coco, who was in the premiere episode, and was supposed to be one of the leads. Sophia was not supposed to be a lead. She was just supposed to be a guest star that came in on occasion. And he was the women's, chef and housekeeper, and was openly gay during the time in the
Yeah.
show. And test audiences did not react well to the character.
Wow.
So he was cut from
I
the
was wondering as I was reading, like, is this true, this storyline?
all true. And if you even look at you watch the very premiere episode, or if you look at kind of old headshots of the cast,
Yeah.
he's right there. And I was fascinated by what must have been like to have the role of a lifetime and then have that ripped away
Yeah.
and spend the next 20 years of your life trying to, kind of recreate it or grab fame again. Because for so many actors and authors, artists I know, um, it can be all consuming. I mean, it can eat you alive to have a semblance of success or not have any at all,
Yeah.
and want to achieve it again or for the first time. And he was really interesting um, to write because he learns so much about himself and not really making himself for sale any longer.
Yeah. Well, who is your favorite Golden Girls character? Just out of curiosity. Does it
I,
match?
yeah, I like Dorothy.
Okay.
I love that the way she looked at people, those side eyes that she
Yeah.
gave folks and her
Best
zingers.
faces.
It's the best. And
Yeah.
I did love them all. And I do have to add that in the book, there's a side character that became one of my favorites too, um, named Estelle, who was Sid's wing woman. She's like 85, size of a footstool, and the
Yeah.
funniest woman on the face of the earth. So,
Yeah.
which Golden Girls would you be?
I have to admit that as I was reading this, I'm like, I don't think I have watched the show since I was
Oh my God,
young.
you're
And so I'm like, I need to
young.
go back and rewatch. But I have seen plenty of Dorothy faces like floating around the social media world, right?
Yeah.
Like she just has the best, like you said, the side eye. So I'm like, I know exactly who that one is. So
And it's weird. This book kind of really, during COVID, I started rewatching it, and so many of my friends rewatched it with their parents or their grandparents
yeah.
long distance because they couldn't visit. And I think I forget how often The Golden Girls was streamed, but it was, I think, one of the top
Wow.
one, two, or three shows during COVID. And I think people kind of saw it as a way to reconnect, and younger audiences
Yeah.
rediscovered it. So it's been interesting, just kind of watching it get a rebirth again in many ways.
Yeah, I had a friend in middle school that she was obsessed with the Golden Girls. And so I definitely watched it, a few at her house, but I'm like, it has been since like middle school probably that I have seen them.
You're younger than I am, though. So yes, there was a like a span of time there after it was off.
Yeah. So I'm like, I need to go back. I need to go back. After reading this, I was inspired that I need to go back and watch them for sure.
It's a funny show and still so timely, and they covered big topics that had never been broached on TV before. So it was a very groundbreaking sitcom in many ways. And I just love that they were a little bit like my grandmother too. Four incredible women that were, what society does sometimes to those of a certain age. We kind of overlook
Yeah.
um, their incredible talents and what they can still offer, and we kind of shove them aside. And that's a big piece of what I wanted the book to cover, much of what like the sitcom did as well.
Yeah. I'm trying really hard with my kids on that too, of like, let's call our grandparents and let's look at them and let's sit down and like not be running circles while, just trying to
Yeah.
teach them the value of, adults as we age.
It's amazing. It's interesting and it's hard. I get this question a lot, especially at Viola book events, from parents and grandparents. It was a different time for me. I grew up, we had a rotary phone.
Yeah.
We had library cards that, we had an old cabin we used to go to in the summer that, we had an outhouse. So
Yeah.
it was another time. And I think I spent so much time with my grandparents and got to know them as people,
Yeah.
not just as my grandparents or old people, but as real people. And I think that made all the difference in my life. And they really did ground me. And some of the hardest times in my life, when I would struggle to get up and out of bed and take a step, I would think of them and think of what they endured and think you can take a step. You
Yeah.
can, they gave me that, I think that foundation, which is, and I love to hear you say that you're doing that.
Yeah. Really trying. We'll see. I mean, they're still young, but
Yeah.
we're working on it. What is your wish for readers? What do you hope they'll take away when they pick up That's What Friends Are For?
I truly hope one, they laugh very, very hard. And I hope that they understand, though someone may be very, very different than they are, we have so much in
Yeah.
common that unites us. We really are the same. And in a world today that tends to do more finger pointing, and be more vocally harsh against one another, I hope they walk away with a greater understanding of what so many incredible people in this world have done to make it a brighter, more beautiful place. And I also hope they understand, you know, you know, people of a, I'd like to say people of a certain age, because, and to understand their gifts and how much life that they can still be 80, but they feel, as my grandmother always said, I still feel like I'm 20.
Yeah.
And we tend to forget that. So I do. I hope this touches their souls.
Yeah. My grandmother is 98
Oh my
and
gosh.
her cousin is 104. And my aunt and my mom were telling me when I was home this summer that they're like, we took them, my grandma actually still has her driver's license. She still passes the test every year, but they drive her, this is like an hour away. So they drive her down to see the cousin. And they're like, it was amazing because they were both so sharp of mind, and just to sit and listen to them tell stories of their childhood. And they're like, it was so much fun to listen to the two of them because they're just both so sharp. And I think her daughter's in her 80s. And she's like, yeah, I'll be like, oh, I got to go take care of my mom. And people look at me like I have a third eyeball because she's in her 80s. Like, what do you mean you got to go take care of your mother? Like,
Thank you for sharing that. That's
so,
amazing.
but yeah, so we'll see. I mean, my grandma, she still lives alone. She's incredible. I mean, 98, she's going to be 99 next year. I mean, it's just
That's
wild.
incredible.
Yeah. So,
I have to
and
say it is amazing. I will say 2 to 3 times a year I get a reader asking, my mom, my grandmother, my great grandmother is turning 100. Can you send a card
yeah,
or a book or something? And I always get very teary-eyed when I'm writing a letter. It's amazing. That's
yeah.
an amazing life.
Yeah. And the point of me saying that is like I think we all need to slow down and just take the
We
time to listen to them
we do.
and those around us. And it even applies to me, let alone my 5-year-old.
That's that's that was my grandma Shipman's advice, was sometimes she goes, sometimes the best thing we can do is just shut the hell up and listen to
Yeah.
some, just don't say a
Yeah.
word and just hear what they're saying.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, what did you learn about yourself through writing this novel?
Oh my gosh, so much. So much. It was cathartic in so many ways because I had a great relationship with the women in my life. I had a very rough relationship with my father.
Yeah.
Um, Tough military guy, who who I know loved me, but really did not understand me at
Yeah.
all. Had, growing up in the Ozarks in the 50s, had zero vocabulary for how to deal with me.
Yeah.
Um, So I felt like I poured so much of my heart and soul and came to an understanding and a forgiveness
Yeah.
through the book, that there's a point in our lives, no matter how old we are, we just so many of us are running,
Yeah.
um, and it doesn't get us anywhere at all. And the best thing that we can do sometimes is just forgive and
Yeah.
and move on with their lives. And that's, I feel like I left just my soul bleeding on the pages of this book in so many ways. And not just me, my friends,
Yeah.
my dear friends helped inspire these characters as well. And so much of their lives are the characters' lives. And I, I truly hope there's not a reader that picks this book up and doesn't feel changed by it. That's my hope.
Yeah. Well, I can say that I was, and I can only imagine. I mean, I would think the same thing. There was so much depth to each of the characters to give you like the full background, as I was saying earlier, of their story to what they are today. And I don't think we live in a vacuum. And of course, experiences that we had when we were young are going to affect us when we're older. And so I think they will be.
And thank you. And thank you. I do. I write character driven fiction. I
Yeah.
mean, plot is not, I'm not James Patterson, Harlan Coben. That the thriller is not my genre, but I love to write about characters that I hope you can fall in love with, um, and just watch them evolve on a
Yeah.
day-to-day basis, because that's the beauty of how we all live and change and grow.
Yeah. And we all hope we're doing that. So,
And that's exactly
yeah.
right.
And we hope we are. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about who you are as a reader. What genres do you enjoy reading?
I read everything. I started as a memoirist, so I really kind of the first piece of my heart goes to reading nonfiction.
Okay.
I like funny. I grew up admiring. My influence as a child was Irma Bombeck. If people don't remember who
Yes.
that is, she was one of America's kind of earliest female humorists. But I loved her. She inspired me, as did David Sedaris and Augustin Burroughs and Nora Ephron.
Yeah.
And then I was a kid of the 80s, so I read a lot of kind of, books of that time, Less Than Zero, Jay McInerney, and those greatly influenced me as well. And today I read, romance, women's fiction, literary fiction. I really do try to cover the gamut.
Yeah.
I think it makes me a better writer. I think it makes, I don't like to be limited in what I read.
Yeah. How in your busyness, I imagine, like, is there a word overload ever, or how in your busyness do you find time to read?
It's hard. It's a weird, and you might have heard this before, but I'm an author that when I'm in the midst of a book, I
Yeah.
don't read
Okay.
because character storylines distract me
Yeah.
and it kills me. But I'm so in my head writing that I kind of don't leave the story for months at a time. I joke
Yeah.
that we can get a new rug here and I won't notice it till I send in the manuscript. But I do.
Yeah.
I can't. It's difficult for me to read while I'm really writing because I'll wake up in the middle of the night and jot down a note, or I'll wake up and if something interrupts that, I feel very disconnected. But when I finish, I am a voracious reader and I get, gazillions of galleys, I'm sure like you
Yeah.
do, that sit stacked up ready to read, and then friends' books that I want to read that I haven't, or books that have intrigued me that I hadn't had a chance to read. So I can put down books very, very, very fast,
Yeah.
as
I
quick as a
am.
glass of wine on a weekend.
Like, I imagine it was like when I was in grad school or even college, I would not allow myself to read the leisure book because I knew I would just want to go dive into that. And so then, you'd get to Thanksgiving break or Christmas break and I'd have my pile ready, to go.
It's true. I was very similar. That's exactly it, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of kept, and then when you did it, you would just jump in head first.
Yeah. Like, we just know ourselves well enough that if
Yeah,
I was reading a leisure book and I was really into it, I wouldn't do what I was supposed to be doing.
exactly.
So, well, I ask all the guests to bring three books in the form of a book flight, and usually it's favorite books or books you have loved. Can you tell us what are three books that you have loved?
I'm going to start with my first is a memoir called Awake by
Okay.
Jen Hatmaker.
Oh,
Um,
yes. That just came
it
out, right?
it just came out. It's beyond terrific. Jen, for those of you who do not know, is not only an author, but she um, was raised in the Southern Baptist Church, and her husband, former husband, had their own church. And she, long story short, she woke up one evening in the middle of the night and her husband had come to bed drunk and he was saying out loud, I can't quit you. And it wasn't to her, he was voice texting his girlfriend.
Oh, I
And
have the
so
chills. Whew.
life as she knew it ended. They had
Yeah.
5 children.
Wow.
She thought, as she says, she thought I was playing by society's rules. I thought I was, staying in the lane, going down the highway perfectly well, and it all went off track.
Yeah.
It's inspiring. It's funny. It's deeply intimate, and I took so much great advice from it, and I, I think women will eat it up because she leaves, you know, she doesn't shy away from anything.
Yeah.
It's pretty impactful.
Yeah. The cover's gorgeous too. That's what caught my eye, I think, at
It's a
first.
gorgeous
Yeah.
cover, and I've gotten to know her, and I'm actually in Saugatuck, Michigan, the resort town where we winter. I'm actually hosting her in September. We're kicking off a literary festival, and she's going to be the first author. So,
Oh, that's
but I think
amazing.
treat yourself. I think you will love it.
Okay.
Um, and I'm going to say the second book is The Forget Me Not Library by Heather
Yes.
Weber.
Yep.
If people don't know Heather, she writes magical realism. They're,
Yes.
they're really just beautiful, simple, heartfelt stories about friends or mothers and daughters, but they have a touch of magic in them. It could be a found book. It could be a something magical at a bakery,
Yeah.
but it kicks the book into another universe. And she's a beautiful writer um, and very similar in a very different way from my Viola novels, which I like. I love somebody that takes a beautiful story and gives it a twist that surprises readers.
Yeah.
So she's that's one of my favorites.
Yeah. So that was the Forget Me Not Library by Heather Weber.
By Heather Weber.
Perfect.
And then my favorite summer read was a novel called Hazel Says No
Yeah.
um, by Jessica Berger Gross.
Yeah.
And it's so good. It's not my typical reading. I would say it edges between contemporary and literary fiction. And it's a novel about a very urban New York family. The dad's a professor at SUNY. The mother's a clothing designer. The little brother is artistic actor, very precocious, and the girl who's entering her senior year is incredibly smart and self-aware.
Okay.
And the father, they can't make it in New York, and the father takes a job as a professor at a private college in rural Maine. And they think it's going to be very thorough, very perfect. The parents are eager to finally actually have a home and,
Yeah.
and a dishwasher and, some money to put away and everything will be good. And on the very first day of Hazel's senior year, very first day, she's called into the principal's office and she thinks it's just a, new student welcoming. And he says, I choose one student every single year to sleep with, and you're her.
Oh,
And as the
whoa.
book says, Hazel says no.
Yeah.
And it turns the town on its ear because it comes out, people don't know who to believe. This new family from New York has upturned everything they thought was, stable and okay. And it's a look at a young woman um, loving herself so much and believing so much in herself
Yeah.
that she stands up and allows her family to have the strength to do so as well.
Wow.
It's very, the way I made it sound, it's very funny.
Okay.
Very funny. Hazel's very so hilarious. And just it's kind of like this massive issue that lands on a smart, but I mean, she's a teenage kid.
Yeah.
You know, all of the nightmare stuff that occurs, just how they dress during the day, getting to school, coupled with this massive bombshell. It's really, I thought it was exceedingly well done.
Okay. That I've actually seen that one as well. And I am so intrigued. Like you said, you kind of dropped that bomb and I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be a really hard book to read. So I'm glad you added that there's humor in it
It's
as
a
well.
lot of humor. Yeah, she's very self-deprecating, and you can't help but kind of fall in love with her, and the
Yeah.
mother as well.
Yeah. And what a strong 17 or 18-year-old girl to be able to do that. So
You
that
know,
right
it's
there.
if, I was going to say if young readers, you know, some of the things that I know they're reading and are popular now, but if you really want a role model and a character to
Yeah.
read this book rather than the
Wonderful.
other stuff.
Okay, so that was Hazel Says No by Jessica Berger Gross. Thank you so
Yep.
much for sharing those books with us. How I love to end our show is with our speed round that you can answer really quick. Are you a rereader?
Yes,
Okay.
I reread a classic every year.
Oh, do you do the same one or do you
I
do?
vary.
Okay,
Just did Catcher in the Rye.
love it. I've
Very
been,
different.
yeah, I've been revisiting high school reads as well because I'm like, I
Ah,
probably really would love it now that I'm not doing it on assignment.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
why I do it too. Exactly.
Yeah, I convinced my book club we did Frankenstein in October, and it
Oh,
was
wow.
beautiful. The writing was stunning.
I was saying, you're right. If it's not on a syllabus, we see it differently.
Yeah. Yeah. So, highly recommend Frankenstein was my latest
I'll
classic.
read that.
So, was there a book that you read that made you want to become a writer?
Oh my gosh. Yes. You know, I have to say early on for me, I was tinkering with my first memoir. It's called America's Boy.
Okay.
Um, it just was republished, actually. It went out of print and actually came back.
Love that.
And it's about me growing up gay in the Missouri Ozarks with a family that loved me, had no idea what to do with me.
Yeah.
And I really did. I loved um, the early humorists that I was mentioning to you, like Running with Scissors
Yeah.
by Augustin Burroughs. I thought was so brutally honest and incredibly funny. It lifted you kind of out of the gutter with his humor.
Yeah.
And I loved Nora Ephron's I Feel Bad About My Neck, which
Yeah.
is just an essay of her, you know, as she's getting older.
Yeah.
And I, what I loved most was this is not a speed round, so I'm
You're
sorry.
good.
I was scared to approach writing a book. I think, like so many newbie authors are, page one, you got to go page one to 400 in a
Okay.
linear fashion. And they helped me see that maybe, especially with memoir, which is what I've done my whole career, you can kind of puzzle piece it. There's an intimate story from your soul. You can get that down first and then begin to see how what the story is that you want to tell.
Yeah.
So those were very influential to me.
I love that. And it's okay that it's not a speed round. It's just, I don't want you to feel intimidated that you have to give some lengthy answer. Where is your favorite place to read?
Uh, on my screen porch in Michigan, we're on 8 acres, and there I have this incredible like vintage napping sofa. So that's my go-to reading place, and it's peaceful and beautiful, and one of my
Yeah,
favorite places in the world.
sounds serene. Lastly, what are you reading next?
Next on my list is a novel called So Old, So Young by Grant Gender.
Okay.
He wrote the book People We Hate at the Wedding, which was turned into a movie with Kristen Bell. Very funny.
Okay.
Allison Janney. And he was kind enough to endorse That's What Friends Are For. And I got a galley of it, and it's sitting, waiting for me to read once I get through edits. So
Yeah.
I know I'm going to love it. He's another writer that this is about five friends that promise to revisit each other every few years at a different event or destination, vacation, and how they grow apart during that time, but return. I've read the beginning and it's spectacular. So excited
Yeah.
to dive into that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I'm like, being a military family, I have friends that are all over, and I have one group of girlfriends we always try to meet,
Ah,
every few years. So I'm like, oh, I kind of like that, the reconnection. And
it's nice. And
yeah.
isn't it? I'm the same way. And isn't it? You look forward to that for months as it's building up. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a big thing.
Yeah. We have one friend that's still overseas. And so we're waiting for her to come back from
Mhm.
overseas to make it a bit easier for her to meet us. And
How
I'm like, I
many,
just can't wait.
how many times have you moved in your?
So let's see. My husband just entered year 15. And we're actually, my youngest is 5. He was born in Sicily.
Oh my gosh!
We moved when he was 10 weeks old, San Diego, Washington State, and back. So that was 4. So my 5-year-old son's moved 4 times.
Wow.
But yeah, I think we've done, we're maybe at 6, 7. I don't know. I'd have to sit and really do the math, but we've been very lucky in our duty station. So I have no complaints of this lifestyle. And I love seeing the world. I feel like we get to do
Yeah.
pockets, where, okay, we know we're on the West
Yeah.
Coast, so we're doing this, or we were in Sicily, so let's do Europe, or it's really, I've enjoyed it.
It is amazing, and I have travel changes us profoundly.
Yeah.
So that's an amazing experience to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming
Thank
on the
you.
show with me tonight. I know your time is precious, and I appreciate all you've given me.
Thank you so much for having me. It means the world.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for listening to this episode today with Wade Rouse, including a book flight of some of his favorite books. You can find all the books that we talked about today at bookishflights.com. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Your review not only helps the show, but it also helps the podcast to reach others. Make sure you are subscribed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to make sure you will not miss an episode. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in your life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.